Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? I don't see anyone else, so you gotta be talking to me. Yeah? You talking to me? I take your nib, I bend you over, shove the nib all the way up. Well, you kind of see the point, I suppose. I think it's time for another fountain pen shootout. That's right, and today we are going to compare the Parker IM and the Waterman Hémisphère. Now, if you take a look at these two, you can probably see why I'd like to do a shootout between the two. The two pens are somewhat similar. They kind of look the same. Of course, they both come in a number of different models. You got different gold trimmings and more chrome color trimmings, etc. So the IM has gold trimmings here, and the my Hemisphere has got more chrome color trimmings. But still. Okay, now, yes, Parker and Waterman are owned by the same company. I'm not sure whether that has anything to do with the fact that these pens kind of resemble each other. I don't really care. I just like to compare the two. Okay, so first of all, the two are pretty smooth writers. I've had the Hemisphere for quite a long time. This was the first pen for which I had a converter, so it really got me into bottled ink, which is, you know, a historic moment. The IM, I haven't had that for so long, but I've been writing with it quite a bit, and I like them both. Okay, so let's start out with the pen's size. Well, there isn't much of a difference there. As you can see, they're pretty much the same. The IM looks a little bit bigger, but it has a fairly bulky cap. When you uncap the pens, I think, if anything, the Hémisphère is just a little bit bigger, but it's almost no difference. The two pens have stainless steel nibs. I'll do a writing sample later on, which is not entirely fair. The Hémisphère has got a fine nib. The IM has a medium nib, but they're both smooth writers. Okay, the body material is metal on both pens, metal caps, metal barrels, and the IM has a metal grip section, whereas the Hémisphère has a plastic grip section. So I think the IM is just a little bit heavier. It's a little bit bulkier. I think it has just a little bit more girth, but it's really a small difference. So, as to size, they're roughly the same. As to weight, IM is a little bit heavier. As to writing, they are both smooth. So, if you're in the market for a decent, I would say, mid-range, or perhaps the somewhat lower end of mid-range, depends a little bit on how good a price you can get. These are mid-range pens, I'd say, and they're both very nice. These could easily make everyday writers because they're very smooth, they're reliable. I have heard some stories about Hémisphère skipping a lot sometimes. All I can say is mine does not. It writes pretty well. Of course, it can depend a little on the ink, the paper, etc., but mine hasn't skipped that much. Okay, I also give you some warning when I'm going to do the writing sample. I just want to repeat that here just to make sure. You can remove the feeds and the nibs from both pens to clean them, which is very useful. However, you've got to be careful when you put them back in. There seems to be a specific way they want to be in, and if you deviate a bit from that, you may get a leaky pen that actually leaks full drops of ink while you're writing, and that goes for both pens. So although I show you how to do it, please be careful. And I've now warned you, so don't come complaining to me if your pen leaks. I've always been able to stop the leak by just turning the feed a bit, making sure it's pushed in, but just a fair warning. Okay, enough talk. I think this is a good moment to show you how to disassemble the pens and do a writing sample. And that's it. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so here we have the Parker IM and the Waterman Hémisphère. I'll start with the Parker IM. It can be disassembled. In my review I said I couldn't take the nib and the feed out, but apparently you can. I'm just using a pair of section pliers here, and the gripper square. The nib is in there fairly tightly, but with a bit of, well, see now, of course it pops out very easily. You can just pull it out. So you fiddle around a bit with it, it may help to turn it a bit in the grip section. Then you can actually remove it. So that's really easy. It's a very nice way and a quick way to clean the pen. So just carefully put it back in there again. Be a little careful about these the fins on the feed, because they do bend. Now I've got the feeling they take a bit before they actually break, but be careful. Okay, here we have the standard Parker push type converter. There also is a Parker converter that is like a piston mechanism, but this one is the push type. Some people like it, some people don't. What's easy about this is that you can actually take this apart fairly easily. There you go. So there we have the piston. I think you can even take that out, but it doesn't really matter. You can put some silicone grease on there. You can just flush this part out. Be careful, there is a small metal ball in there. You don't want to lose that in your sink or anything. And then you can put it back together again. So that is the IM. And then we have the Hémisphère, which has one of these piston-operated converters. I have never been able to take these apart. I once exerted quite a lot of pressure like this, and then it just snapped in half. So I've got the feeling these things are glued in place, and you really cannot open them up. Maybe you can do something with heat, but I think there's a pretty large probability you'll just end up breaking or ruining the converter. Okay, the section. Now this is easily friction fit, so you can just pull it out. We have the nib and the feed. Now the interesting thing is that with both pens, you cannot really adjust the position of the nib or the feed, because they both have slots where the nib actually falls into. So of course you could fiddle around with it a bit, but it really has a nice slot. Now the good thing about that is that you always know that your nib is positioned correctly, because it just falls in place. Okay, there was no specific up or down side. I always gently put it in there, then twist it around, and at some point the feed tends to slide in. Okay, let's ink these two up and do a writing sample. This is the ink I'm using today. This is a new, exciting ink we've got. No, really, it's Florida Blue by Waterman. I wasn't making fun of Noodlers just now. I love Noodlers, really. No, seriously. Okay, ink it up. There we go. I prefer to use this Florida Blue because it's a very well-behaved ink. So for these shootouts, I think it makes sense to use it. And then with the push type converter, easy to use. I don't ink it up all the way now, but that was almost nothing. There we go. I hope that's enough. Feed isn't in there far enough. That's what happens when you fiddle around with your feed. There we go. Alright. So I've just given you an interesting warning. If you screw around with the feed, you don't push it in far enough, your pen will leak. But as you can see, everything's okay now. No big drops of ink falling out. This can happen. I've had the exact same thing with the Hémisphère. So if you're yanking out nibs and feeds, please do be a little careful and make sure that you put them in the right way. Sometimes there's little rods or stuff that will that should align in a specific way with the feed, and if you don't get them aligned properly, you may get a leaky pen. Okay, so there we go. Parker IM. Note that the nib is medium. Versus, whoa, that was a lot of ink. Versus the Waterman Hémisphère. Note that that was not written very nicely, but you'll catch my drift. Note that this is an F, so it should be a bit finer than this one, and it seems to be. Right, so if we compare the lines, I think Parker and Waterman nibs, they're both owned by the same company, but I think they really are pretty compatible as to line width. So you see the medium is indeed a bit wider than the fine. What I really notice here is that although this is a fine nib, it is not scratchy at all. I've used some scratchy finer nibs, but this is a really nice one. This nib too, pretty smooth. I think they're really matched for smoothness. One is not better than the other. Okay, well maybe we want to see some line variation we can induce within a nib. So I apply a bit more pressure here with every stroke. So you see there is some line variation to be had. Not extremely pronounced, but it's there. And with the I think we get the same amount of flex. Clearly these are not flex pens, they're stainless steel, etc. So they're not meant to be flexed extremely, but they do give you some character and line variation. Okay, well maybe we should do some fast writing to see how well the feed keeps up. This is not legible anymore, I'm just making quick squiggles. And it seems to work, keeps up well. Let's do the same here. Keeps up too. So we have two nice pens. Now, a bit of fair warning, I'd just like to emphasize. With both of these pens, after removing the feeds, I've had some leakage issues where drops of ink just flew out. So if you want to do this, you want to clean the pens that way, you know, please be careful and make sure that the nib and the feed are pushed in all the way into the section. And if you're not sure, or if you're a little afraid that you may get your pen to leak and not sure how to do it, I would say forget about it. It's easy enough to clean these pens with a bulb syringe, but if you really want to take them apart, be careful and test them before writing. So don't ink them up and take them to your work or anything and then find out that they leak. Try them out straight away, because if I found that you can really, you know, fiddle around a bit with it, and it should work, but it may take a bit of time to get it right. Okay, so which one of the two is best? Well, the two smooth writers. It's that simple. I really cannot pick a winner, because they're both very nice. They look somewhat the same. They give you the same writing experience. So it's a matter of preference, I would say. And that's all there's to it. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.